Welcome back to Dow Twine. I'm Dave. I'm going to do a little bit of rhythm work here today. We don't do it as often as we should on here, probably. Get a lot of requests about it. And we're using this one chord B7 rock groove from the other day on YouTube. I used it. And on that one, I did one of those no talk videos where I just did like some licks, and then demonstrated them real slow. And then that was it, and then left some backing track, you know, a few minutes of the backing track on there to practice with. So, but this is going to be, when I was making that backing track, that one chord, I wanted to keep it to one chord and make it just groove with the B7. And I almost added another guitar part, over on the other side of the stereo field, because I thought like, oh, okay, more like a Stones type, interplay between the two rhythm guitars. And I left it out. I didn't do it the other day because I thought it kind of, cluttered it up for folks to play along with and stuff. And it wasn't really necessary. But if I were going to play a second part over this loop, it would be something like this. At least one idea. Now that's just that rock and roll lick, right? And it's just different kind of movements with the pinky and stuff. I'm not sure exactly how I did it there. It's a little random. It's just different ideas in there. So, but if you tried to do something like that on top of this, it might be too much. It might get really clunky and cluttered, crowded in there. So. All right, I like that. So let's look at that real quick, and then after that, we'll do a couple things more related to, not really like soloing, but like, making sure that you're down with where your pentatonic, minor pentatonic, and blues scale stuff is, and when you're making these chords in different areas. So. For example, or. That one you're probably more familiar with, right? This one, you use play that B rooted on the fifth string. You might not be as fluent. Some of us at like, I know there's a position for the pentatonic scale there, but I don't know if I can pull the trigger on it like if I was up here. So you want to be able to do that in any location that you're playing the chord. Theoretically at all times in every situation, but certainly in this one chord thing, you have time to really investigate it, right? So here's the rhythm part. It's kind of it's like a slow ride, right? I'm pushing that last little part of the measure there, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But the main count on this is like eighth notes, but you're muting out. You're still hitting it, but you're lifting the squeeze, right? And when you lift the squeeze, you get like a, right, like that. You're not squeezing on the 2 and the 4, so it's. You hear that? I can see that my camera's glitching there a little bit, and this has been happening recently, so that's going to get replaced. I've already restarted this twice today because of it. I'm not sure what's going on with it. It's an iPhone that's doing the video recording, and so the HD and everything still looks intact, but it's starting to like drop those frames or whatever. So don't worry, we'll deal with it. It's always something. I'm telling you, when you're doing this, it's always something with gear. Usually with the recording part. So apologies for that, but that will get corrected soon. So you can just feel this or you can count it. pushing it there at the end. I wouldn't do that on every measure, but like, you know, every couple times around, or like when you're gonna move on to something else or something. It's almost like, think of it like as a you're playing drums and you don't want to put a big fill in there, make a big deal out of the transition. You just do one little, syncopated hit of that snare, like one tom hit or something. It's kind of like that, right? You're just signaling that there's something signing off about it. And it turns it into like a one measure repetition feel to like two or four, so which makes more sense in a groove. So now let's just put this back on and do this in two positions, and just join in here. A little quicker than what I just did, but so keep palm mute. See how I waited for two measures or four maybe. Okay, now that second version there is kind of the reciprocal of it. It's kind of the negative space version of the other one, right? It's like I'm accenting one and two and three, four, two and three, and it's really the and of three, one and two and three, and sometimes I'm going or. I missed it that time because I'm trying to play a real even version of the rhythm there. Okay. And then, it's just one step away from just that full on eighth note, 38 special. If you want to switch gears, maybe that's more like an up tempo thing. If you want a real like poppier rock sound rhythm or whatever. But see how simple those patterns are, but just get settled into them, right? So hopefully that was enough, demonstration to just be able to put this on and have somebody else that's kind of playing, like the Stones do. Somebody's just doing something really repetitive, really dug in with the kick drum and the snare, like they're just really locked in. And then somebody else is kind of, sneaking around with that pinky and the suspended stuff or whatever, But everybody's not doing all that elaborate stuff all at once, right? That it doesn't, it starts to detract, from the coolness, the vibe of the syncopation. You need something really solid for that more tricked out part to have meaning, right? So that's probably a good overview of that. We don't do enough, rhythm stuff on here. So for some folks, that'll just be like the thing to work on right there. Just put that backing track on. It's attached down below, an MP3, and just groove on that. Move around and start to put in some different stuff. Now, I'm mainly using the minor pentatonic. Take the time to get really situated with where those notes are, because some of them will end up being duplicated on an open string when you're down in these lower positions. useful. You wanna exploit that, right? Don't let that, just because you get down to nut, don't just kind of seal off and like avoid those open strings. Take the time to like investigate how you can swap out some of the higher fretted notes for an open string on one string higher than that note. For the most part, I think that's how it works out. Other than that, just make sure that you're familiar with, the full position of the scale. That seems so simple, but just saying. I wonder how many times in the heat of battle, if we just kind of drop some of those notes because we just haven't really rehearsed that. See, every key has, a system where the neck works a certain way or whatever. And B is a really cool one, actually, and a lot of times it's in the context of it being the 5 chord for, a tune that's in E or something. In this case, it's just like the 1 chord. So we're assigning a minor pentatonic scale exclusively to. Now, the little pull-up or hammer. Okay. You want to see somebody masterfully use that pull-off version, Jack Rouge. Doing it in places I've never even thought of. It's that blues scale note. You can do any kind of embellishment with that. Slide it, hammer it, trill it. And that's just such a cool thing to make sure that you're scoping that out in different areas, not just right here. I switched keys, didn't I? Of course, that's important. Well, I'm just playing every key in the book now. All right, so you might not, some of this may or may not be seeing or recognizing where those are positioned anywhere that you're playing a pentatonic pattern, minor pentatonic. Okay, so that's really important. Say I went. See where I'm at? I'm in like this G cage shape of the B now. That'd be like a major pentatonic. Wouldn't hurt to mix some of that in there too. But most of the stuff that was in the little intro and what we're talking about right now would be like going off the B. See, I missed it right there or whatever. Gonna leave it, not gonna go back and fix it, because that's what happens. You could hear that it wasn't right. There is so much, I'll guarantee you, there is stuff down low, down in here, that we're not covering. I don't care who, I may be mistaken in the case that there are some, masters of the fretboard or whatever watching right now. Most of us there's holes in there, right? Where we just haven't investigated it, right? So that's all, as far as like the work on this, here's another B. How much action is going on just by using that one blues note thing, and these and every shape, every place that you do that in, it has a different contour. It feels different. It sounds different, right? And so even though you're using the same technique all over the neck, you're getting all kinds of diversity in your sound by doing that. You gotta do the work on it. One way you can do it is just look for roots. Sometimes it's not convenient because if you're like on the highest string, it's like, well, wait a second. It gets really, it's like, now you're not going to run all over trying to play that right there. So just move. See, if you linger on it, it sounds out. I got lucky, didn't I? I caught like 4 of them in a row going down there. And it sounded cool. So there's something in there for everybody at different levels, right? Start with what you know already, with what makes sense. I'm just going to start on the root and stay in these couple of shapes that I'm familiar with. Don't overthink it, and then put that track on and just groove on out. Let me know how it goes. Appreciate you. See you next time.